The room was so still you could hear the slow tick of Grandma's old mantel clock. 15 relatives squeezed into her living room, the air heavy with lavender potpourri and unspoken judgment. I was 32, sitting in my usual spot by the window, the chair no one else ever wanted, when my sister rose in her $3,000 tailored suit and announced she was tripling my rent. $6,800, she declared, like a judge passing sentence. Effective next month. Some relatives smirked, others shifted awkwardly. I stayed quiet calm because I held a card she didn't know existed. But before I explain how that moment turned, you need to understand what led here. Growing up as Victoria's little sister meant living in her shadow, so wide it swallowed me whole. She was the golden child, Harvard Law, summa cum laude, partner at 35. I was the ordinary one, state school graduate, property management degree, assistant manager at a mid-sized firm. Family gatherings always followed the same script. Did you hear Victoria just closed a $10 million merger? Aunt Patricia would gush. Then the inevitable head tilt toward me. And Madison, you're still doing that property thing? Yes. Yes, I was. And I loved it. Walking buildings, studying market trends, spotting potential where others saw problems. But in my family, especially to Victoria, passion wasn't currency. I was the underachiever, the one who needed guidance and tough love. For 5 years, I rented a 2-bedroom on Riverside Drive, one of Grandma's old properties. Victoria managed it out of the goodness of her heart, constantly reminding us of her sacrifice. She set my rent at $2,200, a so-called family discount, though the market was $2,400. Not much of a discount, but she never let me forget it. Most people at your salary couldn't afford this neighborhood, she'd say with that patronizing smile. And I believed her. I paid every month on time, even when the dishwasher sat broken for 3 months, even when the heat failed in the dead of winter. I never complained. That was my role, the little sister grateful for crumbs. But 3 years before this day, something shifted. Something Victoria never knew about. When Grandma was still alive, I spent Sundays helping her sort her finances. She was sharp, even in her 80s, but she trusted me to explain investment statements and organize her records. One evening, she slipped me a card and whispered, "Your sister means well, but she doesn't see everything. Sometimes the quiet ones are the smartest. Remember that when the time comes." I didn't understand then. But months later, after she passed, her personal lawyer, not Victoria's family attorney, called me. Grandma had left me something outside the main estate. A private inheritance. Enough to make a strategic move. Enough to change my entire future. Fast forward to that Tuesday in Grandma's living room. Victoria stood tall, pen in hand, legal pad ready, announcing her new terms. "Your rent is currently $2,200, far below market," she said, clicking through her color graphs. "Comparable units are $6,800. I've been subsidizing your lifestyle for 5 years. That's $240,000 out of my pocket." Aunt Patricia gasped like Victoria had donated a kidney. "Oh, Victoria, you're such a saint." Victoria smiled, the kind of smile that demanded applause. "I don't want praise. I just want fairness. Madison, you're 32. It's time you stood on your own." She slid the new lease across the table. "I'll need your signature today." Silence pressed against the room. 15 faces watched, waiting for someone, anyone, to defend me. But no one spoke. Not after 5 years of paying faithfully. Not after countless hours helping Grandma with her books while Victoria was too busy. Nothing. I glanced at the paper, then at my phone. A text I had sent 20 minutes earlier already had its reply. "On my way. Documents ready." I wasn't the same Madison they thought I was. Not anymore. Victoria mistook my silence for surrender. "Let's make this a teaching moment," she said, pulling up Zillow listings. Madison's apartment should be $7,200, $7,500, even $8,000. I'm giving her a discount at $6,800. My phone buzzed again. 15 minutes out. Uncle Ted cleared his throat. "Victoria, that's quite a jump." "It's market rate," she cut him off. "Successful people pay market rate." Madison works in property management. She, of all people, should understand this. Laughter rippled around the room. Cousin Derek smirked. "Guess you'll need 3 roommates." Every word was a knife. Every smirk another reminder of the role they thought I'd never escape. Mediocre, dependent, small. Victoria leaned closer, her voice dripping with condescension. Sign the lease, Madison, or start packing. I already have 3 applications from Columbia law students. They're offering $7,000. The threat hung thick in the air. I almost smiled. Victoria had no idea. She didn't know the building she'd been using to lord over me was mine. 3 years earlier, with Grandma's gift, some savings, and a lot of quiet grit, I purchased the property through a holding company. Every contract, every renovation permit, every rent check had gone through me. Now, with the entire family watching, she was about to learn the truth. I traced the bold numbers on the lease, $6,800, while my heart thudded once hard. My face, trained by years of being underestimated, gave nothing away. Victoria read my silence as defeat and smiled. Good. Sign, and it will be behind us. Her smugness filled the room. My parents shifted but stayed silent. Nobody rose to defend me. Yet I felt strangely steady. I set the pen down. No, the single word cut through the murmur. Heads turned. Aunt Patricia gasped. Victoria's smile faltered. What do you mean, no? She demanded. The doorbell rang, perfect timing. I opened the door to a man in a dark suit carrying a leather briefcase. He nodded and addressed the room with calm professionalism. Good evening. I'm Mr. Carver, representing Riverside Holdings, LLC. I have documents for the tenants of this building. Confusion rippled. Victoria bristled. Tenants? I manage this property. Mr. Carver adjusted his glasses. Not anymore. Riverside Holdings purchased this building 3 years ago. I'm here on behalf of the owner. Color drained from Victoria's face. I stepped forward, my voice steady so everyone could hear. You didn't know because you never asked. While you lecture me about standing on my own, I was building my foundation. Whispers rose around the room. My mother's eyes widened. Cousin Derek muttered, Wait, what? Mr. Carver opened his briefcase and laid out a thick stack of documents. Title deeds, tax receipts, renovation permits, all signed by me. Madison Irving, he announced, is the sole owner. The room fell silent. Even the old clock seemed to pause. Victoria stumbled back, pale and stunned. This can't be, she stammered. I looked her in the eye. You tried to raise my rent in a building you don't own. You tried to evict me from my own property. Gasps and stunned murmurs filled the room. Aunt Patricia whispered, Oh my God. My parents looked helpless. Victoria protested, accusing me of trickery. I cut her off. I didn't trick you. I stopped letting you trick me. The power she'd wielded so easily slipped through her fingers. She finally found her voice trembling. You can't do this. Grandma left me in charge. I replied, calm and precise. She trusted me with something bigger. While you performed for everyone, I listened to her. Mr. Carver chimed in. I can confirm. Ms. Madison Irving has been the legal owner for 3 years. Tenants pay rent to her holding company, including technically your unit. Victoria reeled. My unit, she repeated. I folded my arms, the years of humiliation sharpening my words. Yes, Victoria. You tried to raise my rent in a building where you're a tenant. Around us, reactions ranged from Aunt Patricia's, oh my heavens, to Uncle Ted muttering about karma. Derek's smirk vanished. Victoria's composure broke. This isn't possible. I won't pay you a cent. I cut her off with the same choice she'd offered me. You'll pay or you'll leave. You thought you could break me, humiliate me, I said evenly. But here's the truth, Victoria. While you were climbing, I was already standing higher than you imagined. Her lips trembled. You're cruel. No, I whispered back. I'm finally done being your victim. The words landed like a gavel strike, final, unshakable. Mr. Carver snapped his briefcase shut. That concludes my business. Good evening. He shook my hand, nodded to the room, and left. Silence swallowed everything. Victoria slumped into her chair, posture ruined, eyes glassy. I walked to the door with a steadiness I hadn't known I possessed. 15 years of belittlement slid from my shoulders. I didn't need applause or validation. The look on her pale face, and the silence of those who once laughed with her, was enough. Stepping into the cool night air, I breathed deep. The faint scent of rain clung to the wind. I looked up at the building, my building. The one where she tried to make me feel small. Tonight, I felt solid, rooted, powerful. Inside, voices still murmured. Tomorrow, my relatives would whisper in kitchens telling neighbors we never knew Madison had it in her. That was fine. For once, the story wasn't about how Victoria saved me. It was about how I saved myself. In the weeks that followed, the fallout came fast. At first, Victoria avoided me. Then came the desperate phone calls at odd hours. "Can we work something out?" she pleaded. "You can't expect me to pay rent to you. I'm your sister." I almost laughed. Sister? She'd wielded that word like a weapon for years, proof of her superiority. Now she used it as a shield. "You raised my rent to $6,800 without blinking," I reminded her calmly. "Why should I treat you differently?" Her silence on the line was answer enough. Then my parents called. My mother's voice was brittle, icy. "Do you know what you've done to this family's reputation?" I let the words hang before replying. "Do you know what you did to me? You stood by while she belittled me. You cared about appearances, not truth. Now the truth is the appearance." She hung up, but I didn't cry. Not this time. Instead, I embraced my new rhythm. I managed my tenants with care. I reinvested in the property, painted the halls in warm colors that reminded me of Grandma. When neighbors thanked me for fixing what Victoria had neglected, pride rose in me like sunlight. One evening, as I locked up the lobby, Victoria appeared on the sidewalk, pale under the streetlight. Arms crossed, she stared at me as if searching for the sister who used to shrink at her voice. Finally, she whispered, "You've changed." I met her eyes without flinching. "No, Victoria. I just stopped letting you write my story." The words seemed to pierce deeper than anger ever could. She opened her mouth to fight, but no words came. She turned, heels clicking away into the night. I stood there breathing in the quiet, free at last, not just from her, but from the weight of needing her approval. My life was mine now, built brick by brick, deed by deed, choice by choice. And that freedom was worth more than revenge. It was justice, and it was mine. If this story resonates with you, carry this truth. You are not defined by those who underestimate you, nor bound to roles they force upon you. The greatest power you'll ever claim is the courage to own your story and stand tall in it, no matter who tries to cut you down. If my journey stirred something in you, share this with someone who needs it. Subscribe for more stories of resilience and quiet victories, and leave your own story in the comments. I'd love to hear how you found your strength.